Hello, what's up YouTube photographer Ronix with another tutorial. In this tutorial, as usual, we are going to be doing skin retouching from the very start to the very end. And if at all you're a beginner out there and you want to understand how to do frequency separation and skin retouching, that is going to help you achieve more professional and pleasant results in Photoshop. And those that have issues retouching and getting the nice and before details in their images, this is a tutorial for you. So we're just going to be understanding the concept of frequency separation from the very start to the very end of this tutorial. So right now this is the image that we have, and the very first thing I did, I tried to remove most of the blemishes so that this tutorial is not a very long one. So basically frequency separation is a skin retouching technique that is going to divide the image into the high frequency layer and the low frequency layer. In the high frequency layer, usually we have our textures, and in the low frequency layer, usually we have our colors or skin tones. So that when you combine both layers, you're going to end up with the same image at the end of the process of separating the frequencies of the image. So just come to the background layer and create those two layers by pressing Ctrl J, or you can use Command J on the keyboard. So press it twice and rename this into low frequency, and you're going to name this into high frequency. So with this, just come and first of all look at these two layers. So the very first thing I'm just going to do, I'm just going to widen this up a little bit and widen this. So the very first thing that we're going to do is first of all retaining only the colors in the low frequency layer. So just come and select that layer and turn this off, then come to filter right here, come to blur and come to Gaussian blur right here. So this is a point that is very important when it comes to retouching your images. So what we are going to do, we are just going to come and look at the image. So for this case, what do we want to blur out? We want to blur out the textures and eliminate them from the low frequency layer. So you have to use this preview window and you look for an area that has more textures than the rest of the skin. So this area has more textures, so we're just going to blur out by taking up the radius of this very image, just like that. And we're going to stop at the point when these details are just starting to disappear from this image. So just stop at the point when you're just starting to lose out and you can visibly not see the textures in the image, and come and simply press OK. So after doing that, it's going to make the image blurry. Then come to the high frequency layer and now activate it by clicking on the visibility icon. Then come to image and you're going to come to apply image. So when you come to apply image, it is going to open up this apply image dialog box. So what we're going to do, remember we want to subtract our textures from the high frequency layer. So just come to the mode or to the layer and simply select the low frequency layer. So right now, if at all you're using an 8-bit image, this is the setting that you have to use. Make sure the channel is RGB and the blend mode has to be subtract, opacity at 100%, preserve transparency and mask are not checked. The scale has to be 2 and offset 128. So after doing this, make sure the invert option is not turned on, and when you put these settings right, you can see that the textures are on this gray kind of layer. Yeah, and this layer or this preview here is lacking colors and only has the outlines and the textures, and you can press OK. But if at all you have 16, meaning your image is going to be a 16-bit image, just come and select the low frequency layer. The channel is RGB, the blend mode has to be add, opacity at 100%, preserve transparency and mask are not checked. The scale is 2 and this time around the offset is 0, and this time around we turn on the invert option and to give us the same result. So I'm just going to come and press OK right there. So after doing this, we're just going to come to the blend mode and change it from normal, and the blend mode that is going to reveal back the image is going to be linear light. So right now we are back to where we started with this image. Then we are going to come and we put these two in a group by pressing Ctrl and selecting both and pressing Ctrl G on the keyboard to group them, and you can double click to rename it to frequency separation. Like I said at the start of the tutorial, there shouldn't be a difference between your frequency separation and the initial image. So just turn this on and off to cross check and see if at all there is any difference. So after we have done this, we have successfully separated the frequencies in the image. So the next thing you're going to do, you're just going to open up the frequency separation group, then come and we select the low frequency layer. The reason for this is because every single time we retouch images, we first of all want to ensure that the uneven or inconsistent skin tone transitions are really blended better, because as light hits the skin, it creates variations within the skin. So with a tool that I'm about to share with you, you can easily come and even out or blend the transitions within this very image. So come and select the low frequency that contains the colors or skin tones, and come to your brushes. So I'm using Photoshop 2020. So when you come to your brushes, simply right click on the brushes option and select your mixer brush tool. So we are selecting the mixer brush tool and not any other kind of brush. So if at all you're using an older version of Photoshop, you can find your mixer brush tool in this option below here. So just want to blend the transitions within the skin using the mixer brush tool. So after selecting it, just come and make sure you set it right. Then come and make sure the hardness is at 0% and make sure it is a clean brush as usual. Then we select the option which says clean the brush after each and every stroke right here. This second option, not the first one, but the second one. The weight we are going to be using is 9%, the load of 75, the mix at 90, and the flow of 100%. Then also make sure sample all layers is not checked, because when you tick this option or when you check it, it means that our brush is also going to be painting the textures in the low frequency layer, which we don't want. So make sure this option is not checked. And in order to see the inconsistent skin tone transitions, just come and simply turn off the texture or high frequency layer so that you can only work with the colors and blend them better. So right now, when using the mixer brush tool and showing like this plus icon, simply press the caps lock key and you'll get back the tool looking like this. Then also, if at all your brush, or if at all you want to change the brush size, you can simply use the open bracket on the keyboard. Is going to reduce on the size, and the right bracket is going to increase on the size of the mixer brush tool. So depending on the area you're going to be working on, you have to keep on playing around with different sizes of the mixer brush tool. So right now, after you have set the mixer brush tool, it is time to apply it. So how we use the mixer brush tool, we make sure it is relatively the size of the area that we want to work on, and we simply paint or mix the colors that are looking similar or alike in the image. And you have to move your mixer brush tool in a direction of the area that you're trying to work on, if at all you want to get the best out of the mixer brush tool. So you can see the more plastic it is looking, the better the results. By this I mean we turned off the texture layer, and when you turn it back on, you can see the textures are still there. So right now we don't want the textures to distract us as you're trying to retouch this very image. So I'm just going to retouch using the mixer brush tool just like that. So I'm basically mixing colors that are looking similar or the same, so that they can really have a nice and beautiful transition amongst them. So I'm just going to mix just like that, and where it is moving from the midtones to the highlights, just come and mix that boundary just so that it can really blend in well. So you can see I'm not retouching while I have over zoomed in, because when you over zoom in your image, you won't be seeing the inconsistent skin tone transitions, and you're going to be distracted, and you may take a longer time trying to retouch your images. So always make sure that you retouch while you're looking at the image from a distance. So I'm just going to come and I work on this cheekbone right there. So mix those colors alone, and we have midtones right here. So you can see I'm moving my brush strokes in the direction of an area that I'm trying to work on. So that is how I'm moving the mixer brush tool, because when you move it in an opposite direction, it means it is going to flatten that area, and the face of our model is going to be distorted in the due process. So always make sure that you really are careful with the movement of your mixer brush tool. So reduce on the size, and you work on these tiny highlights on the nose. So just come this other side of the face and also work on these shadow areas. So basically I'm mixing or blending the colors within the face so that they can really have a nice and beautiful transition amongst them using the mixer brush tool. So I hope you're learning something, and if at all you're learning, I have a request that you hit the like button, because when you do this, it helps YouTube to recommend this video and this channel to many people out there who are interested in photography and retouching as a business or as a way of living. So make sure that you hit the like button, because you're going to be helping those people discover the channel as well and also benefit from the content that you're watching. So I'm just going to come and do this. So you can keep on turning on the texture layer to see the progress. So this is the before, after so far. So right now we just want to work on the hands too. So turn off the textures, and we're just going to come and also work on the hand right here. So remember, as you're doing your skin retouching, you always have to make sure that every area that has or is displaying skin is perfectly worked on, so that you can have the best out of your image and your clients may be really satisfied with your skin retouching or your photos that you have delivered to them. So always make sure that you take your time as you're retouching. So let's work on this other hand right here. So right now we are almost done using the mixer brush tool. So basically I use the mixer brush tool, or we use it to work on the skin tones. And in order to perfect what we have just done using a mixer brush tool, just going to turn on the texture layer, and we'll look at a quick before and after for this very image. So this is the image before, after. So right now we are going to incorporate a second technique, that is using our lasso tool. So just come right here and get the lasso tool, and make sure it is in new selection mode, and the feathering is 22 pixels. The reason for this is because as we are selecting on the skin, we want the selection to be as smooth, or the edges of the selection to be very smooth, and we don't want sharp edges. The reason for doing this, if at all your feathering is at 0 pixels, for example, and you make a selection on the skin, let me just make a selection, you can see at 22 pixels, you can see the edges of the selection are really smooth. But if at all you leave your pixels at 0 pixels and you make a selection on the skin, it means that it's going to be very sharp and may leave these lines on the skin, which you don't want. So make sure that the feathering is at 22 pixels. So after that, just come and select or make a selection on the skin area. So just come and do or draw a selection. So you have to follow the shape of the area that you're trying to select on the skin. Then after that, just come back to filter. We are still on the low frequency layer, by the way. So just come to filter and come to blur and come to Gaussian blur. So after that, you can come and start dragging up. Remember, the radius that we had as we're separating the frequencies of the image was 7 pixels. So when it comes to this point for the lasso tool, start dragging up the radius up to when you feel like you are having a better skin tone transition and the texture is as natural as possible. So at around 21 pixels, that is when I have a better skin detail or textures. But in order to nail this or get this well, just going to reset this. So usually I multiply this radius by 3. So whichever radius you may have used for your photo, just multiply it by 3 and type in that value. So 7 by 3 is 21. I'm just going to come and type in 1, just like that, and that is okay. So we're just going to deselect by clicking out from the selection and come and right click or left click and draw to make another selection. Right click and come to Gaussian blur. And when you feel like the effect is a little bit too much for your liking, simply right click on the selection and come to fade Gaussian blur, and you can reduce on the effect to your liking. So I'm just going to deselect by clicking out from the selection and come and make another selection to this other side of the face. Right click and come to Gaussian blur right there, and come to this chin area, right click and apply the Gaussian blur. So basically what we are doing for this step, we are trying to perfect the areas we may have missed out unknowingly when we are using the mixer brush tool to blend or even out the transitions within the skin. So right now I only apply this technique on only the face. So after doing this, you can see a quick before and after for our skin retouching. The textures are still intact, and right now it is time to do the color grading. So right now, in order to color grade, I'm going to create a stamp visible layer for these very processes that we had before by pressing Shift Alternate Control E on the keyboard. So press Shift Alternate Control E on the keyboard. By the way, I have not removed the blemishes because I removed them first to make the video a little bit shorter. So just come and create a stamp visible layer. If at all you're using Windows or PC, you can use Shift Alternate Control E on the keyboard. Then if at all you're using Mac, you can use Shift Option Command E on the keyboard, create a stamp visible layer. Then we are going to come to filter and come to the camera raw filter to do the final adjustments to the image regarding color grading. Then we're going to come back to Photoshop to do everything. So just come to our color mixer, and usually what I do, I come to the oranges, I come to the luminance in the color mixer, and luminance is the brightness or darkness of a given color. So I'm basically going to make the orange color dark, just like that, because that makes the skin a little bit more contrasty. Then I come to the basic adjustments, and I'm just going to drop down the highlights and the whites to have more contrast within the skin, and come to the contrast and basically boost that up so you can see the before and after. Then we're going to come back into Photoshop to do the final color grading. So in order to do this color grading, we are basically going to come and create a hue and saturation adjustment layer. So this is how I do this, because I feel like the model was melanated, she had that dark skin, so I want to achieve that, and I don't want to alter or distort the original color of the model skin. So just come to the master and simply select the reds, and come to the lightness and simply darken, just like that. And that looks okay, but I feel like the skin is a little bit more on the yellow side, so I'm just going to add some reds to the skin, just like that, by taking the hues towards the left. Then I'm also going to come to the yellows and also take down the lightness, and this is going to make me achieve a better skin for our model. So after doing this, I'm just going to come straight to my black and white adjustment layer. Then after doing this, remember I want to add contrast to the skin. Come to the blend mode and change it from normal to multiply, and simply come to the opacity and take it all the way down to the one of my liking. Up around 5 looks okay, it looks great. Then after doing this, I'm just going to come to my selective color adjustment layer and come straight to my blacks and simply intensify the blacks a little bit up around 2, and cool down the image by taking or adding more blues to the skin, and this makes the image pop a little bit more. So for the color grading, I'm just going to put this in a group and press Ctrl G on the keyboard, and I can name that to color grade. So this is the before and after for our color grading for this very image. So the last thing I tend to do when it comes to retouching is doing the eye and teeth whitening. So in order to do this, I simply come and create a last hue and saturation adjustment layer. And what I do, I make sure it is in master. Then I come and I take out the colors out of the image while looking at the eyes and the teeth until they are white to my taste. So I'm just going to leave it that up around -80 is fine. And with the white layer mask selected, I'm just going to simply press Ctrl or Command I on the keyboard to invert that effect. Then after that, I'm just going to come under the brushes, right click, and this time around I'm just going to get the brush tool. And for settings, make sure the hardness is at 0%, opacity and the flow of 100%, and the mode is normal. Then come right here and make sure I have white and black. And in order to reset, you can click on these 2 small boxes, and if at all you have any other color here, so click on these 2 boxes. So in order to switch between black and white, you can use X on the keyboard. So make sure white is on top, and remember in Photoshop, white reveals and black hides. That is why it hid the effect from affecting the overall image. So using the white brush, we're just going to come and paint in the areas we want whiten, or the white areas within the eyes of our model. So reduce on the size, and simply, so you reduce on the size of your brush by using the bracket keys on the keyboard, and Just going to paint in the eyes to whiten that. And like I said, eye whitening really transforms the image and it makes it look a little bit great or even better. So just going to come to the teeth and also do some teeth whitening right here. Reduce on the size and simply paint on the teeth. So if I told you paint on an area that you didn't want to paint, you can either switch the brush to black and rub away, or you can as well press Ctrl or Command Z to do that. So we are now done doing the skin retouching and color grading for this very image. And let me show you a quick before and after for the retouching and color grading. So this is the before and after, before, after. So right now what I want to do, let's save the image so that it doesn't change in color after we have been able to save it in Photoshop. So after that, after doing the retouching, just come right here to file and come to export and come down to export as. So when you come to export as, it's going to open up the export as window, and this is where the magic is going to take place. So if I told you had issues with images changing in color when you try to save them in Photoshop, or those that usually have images that don't look sharp after saving them, this is how you should save your images. So just come to the format and select JPEG and come to the scale right here and make sure the scale is at 100%. Then resampling, we want Photoshop to slightly sharpen the image for us after saving it, so or during saving it. So just come and make sure you select bicubic sharper. And in order for your image not to change in color after saving it, just come to color space and simply select or check convert to sRGB and also embed color profile. So after doing this, you're going to be able to get this activated, and you can come and press export and you save the image to wherever you want and simply hit save. So basically this is how to do high-end skin retouching and color grading from the very start to the very end. And I hope this video has been really helpful to you. And if at all you have learned something new, don't forget to hit the like button on this video so that YouTube can push and recommend this tutorial to many people out there. Ronix from Ronix Photography. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in yet more amazing tutorials. And don't forget to keep practicing and also keep creating.